Well, I think it is 3:30, so we're going to make a start. Hi, everyone that has logged in, or maybe you're watching it afterwards via the video link. Welcome to CENMAC Thursday 30, and also to Myles Pilling. Is it Pilling?
Pilling, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the British Assistive Technology Association, we're really thrilled that Myles has offered to run this session this afternoon on the power of assistive technology. So thank you very much for doing that. We are members of the British Assistive Technology Association. I think it's really important that we're all, working together and sharing the impact of assistive technology and how it can change young people's lives in particular. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to you. I think we're recording the session, and I think we will just suggest if people have got questions to pop them in the chat, or do you want them to raise their hand and then maybe take it at the end?
I think, yeah, pop it in the chat, and then at the end, I'll come back to it with you as well. I'll have the chat running alongside what's going on.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay.
Well, I'll hand over to you. Thanks very much.
Not at all. It's a pleasure. Well, it's great to see you all. Thank you for coming this afternoon. And I just want to introduce myself. I'm Myles Pilling. I have been a special schools teacher for 28 years. And then I was a ICT coordinator during that time. And then I became a advisory teacher. And my role was to provide loan equipment to children in our local authority, and I would provide the equipment and the support. At the height of our service, we had a technician who built our kit, and we had a TA who was able to go out and support the TAs who were supporting the child. That was a really good methodology. And I would work with the senior management team, the teachers and the pupils, working out solutions. And the range of pupils was quite wide. We had from dyslexia through to cerebral palsy, through to autism, through to ADHD. And for 10 years, it was my dream job, and I loved every single minute of it. It was absolutely fantastic. But then, as in our country happened, particularly with local authorities, is that austerity in 2013 happened, and we had to basically hand our kit over to schools, which I didn't mind. It was the right thing to do, but our service was pulled. And I was then faced with a choice close to retirement. Do I retire, or do I continue to do what I do? So I chose the latter and now work across an immense different area. But it is important because it really explains the importance of the power of assistive technology. At that time, we adopted the Every Child Matters agenda, and we had just got it right. The major problem we faced in this local authority was having the same service across a whole region. And we managed to enable that region to have the same service no matter where you were. And it really was working. And then sadly, funding was pulled and that stopped. And I don't think this is an unfamiliar story. So this is why the project that I'm about to show you occurred. We then, I was a member of BARTA, I'm a member of BARTA, a council member, and I just felt that as a government for the last decade, there hasn't been any kind of focus or even encouragement to use assistive technology. And I just felt that lots of children were being left behind. And I just want to share some facts with you and explain what the project was. I felt that it needs to have a proper look at and promotion of technology to schools, because I was meeting schools in the last 10 years who didn't really understand what assistive tech was and even what it could do. And also the knowledge wasn't just there. And for me, that brought about this project. We acquired enough funds to make free films that we want to go out to schools. This is released now, and I can tell you a bit more about the figures of downloads of things. But let me continue with my journey about why this is important. 1.3 million pupils in the UK have special needs. That's a whopping 15% of the school population. That's a figure that came in 2021. 72% of teachers said they use assistive technology to support students with disabilities. That was from the National Foundation of Educational Research, which sounds a pretty high figure. I do agree. But it also, and also this figure, 63% of schools in the UK reported using assistive technology to support their students. And that's from the British Educational Suppliers Association. That figure came about. But that still leaves 28% of teachers who may not be using assistive technology, and 37% of our schools who may not be using assistive technology at all to support pupils. The BESA study, I met the guy who actually compiled that study, and he said to me, it's somebody I didn't know, I met him at BET, and he told me that he came across a school that was still using XP as their operating system. But the really wild thing about it was they didn't know there was another better, newer operating systems. That is the level at some places that we're facing. For whatever reason, I do not know the background, and I'm not mentioning the school because I don't know it, but there is a huge gap between what schools do. I do know there are some amazing schools, and we came across them in the filming. Also, 38% of secondary schools have assistive technology devices, but we have no knowledge of how they're using them and in what way they're using them. So I think those figures of 72% and 63%, it's going to be very much dependent on how old that equipment is and whether the schools have had training in it. So when I've talked to schools in the last 10 years, they have said, well, actually, we haven't got any finance to buy new kit. We haven't got time to learn about assistive technology, and we don't have any training facilities. So I thought, I must do something because I'm passionate about this, because I've seen the changes that have occurred, and so have you at CENMAC. Now, out of this study, 80% of pupils who need AT in all sectors of the UK schools, that's the figure of people who necessarily need it. Do you know how many actually use it? 3.1%. So there is a need out there. So the facts are telling us that. But more importantly, how do we get a positive message across to schools? Well, I'm of the belief one person can make a difference. And that's what I intended to do. And I was blown away by the fact that the council, because making films is not cheap. And everybody pitched in and helped. And so we have a group of stakeholders, and you'll get that mentioned during the presentation. What are the titles of these films? Well, we wanted to stress the importance of assistive technology in education, and so those figures are put into a graphical way into the actual episodes. These episodes last between 15 and 20 minutes. That will come up in one of the slides. We also have using assistive technology, which is more about the actual cases that pupils have. And the final one is lost in transition between primary and secondary schools. Now, the order is slightly different. Lost in transition is number 2, using assistive technology is number 3, and number 1 is the importance of assistive technology in education. What we did that was unique is that, at least I'm not aware of it, is that we went out and filmed in 7 schools, 25 plus pupils, and we interviewed them and asked them their journey through education. And what we got back was absolutely eye-opening. What we want these films to be doing is that we want them to go into staff meetings, hence the timing, roughly about 20 minutes. So it could fit on a staff meeting, or it could be used in INSET days, or it could be used in assemblies to show pupils how assistive technology has changed lives, and teacher training. That's a very important one. And what we're saying is we're giving this free to schools. There's no cost to this because, as I've said, with the cutbacks and the austerity and the problems over finance, these are the top 3 reasons schools don't use that technology as they should do. But what was staggering is what the pupils told us. Many of the pupils said they received no help whatsoever at primary school for their dyslexia, for those kind of neurodivergent needs. In fact, they were called lazy and stupid. This just didn't happen with one pupil. It happened with a lot of them. I won't say all of them, because of all their different needs. Those with more complex needs, yes, their needs were being met. But those on the neurodivergent spectrum of things, their problems were very sufficient. So they came out of primary school thinking they're not clever, that they're stupid. And so you'll hear them telling their stories. I will show you a brief clip towards the end of this presentation. So that's the plan. Who was involved? These are our sponsors. Scanning Pens, you will know. TextHelp, you will know. Microlink, you might know. Microlink, one of our partners, has been working very successfully in providing training via NASEN and the DFE free to schools in the last year. And they've been having great success in showing students how this works. Because how on earth or where do you go to find training? Who's going to do that? I mean, I am of an age and I have had a lived experience through all the changes. And it suddenly occurred to me that special educational needs in education is only 54 years old. Back in 1970, the law that actually provided education for people with learning difficulties or mental handicap, as it was called then, it's only quite relatively young. We had great power and use in the 90s to achieve all of this. And we also had support with funding in the 90s. But then when we got to the noughties, the government said, you've had your funding, that's it. And you were left on your own. Academies came in, and you know the story. Many of you have been involved in this. So back in, I think it was one SEN show in round about 2015, I asked teachers, where did they get their CPD from? And the answer came back, Twitter, as it was then, it's now Twitter X. And so you can see what was happening. People weren't getting out of schools to do training, and therefore they weren't getting the help. So there was a real need to fill and step in the gap and do something in the absence and provoke people to do something, not by bashing them over the head with a stick, but actually letting them listen to the pupils and what they are telling them. Because I actually believe that pupil voices are very powerful for change. So I'm just going to play you this video. It only lasts 2 minutes. It's our trailer, and then we'll talk further.
I can think of one child, and their early journey in education was very much dictated by their behaviour within the classroom. They were actually unable to access the curriculum or put any output because of the barriers that they had.
When I was growing up, because I didn't have the assistive technology, I always thought, you're not smart, you're not as clever as other people.
When I moved to secondary school, I kind of just went, oh, you're fine. But I wasn't really fine.
Using assistive technologies is valuable for all, but it's vital for some.
The technology that we introduce is available to everybody across a college of nearly 5,000 students.
There's not always going to be someone there to read for them or to write for them. This is where our assistive technologies come in to help them to do that for themselves.
If it's good inclusion for some, it's good inclusion for all. I feel that there's fantastic opportunities to be inspired by the work of others out there.
This technology has allowed everyone to achieve, and there's then also no stigma around it.
That child's behaviour significantly changed from the moment we introduced the technology for them.
I believe it's very important for the students to actually have the knowledge of the program.
It allows me to do my homework faster and in greater detail.
So it's definitely helped being able to express what I want to write about.
And it's made writing a lot easier and a lot neater.
It was a way for me to focus on my work.
When you use it, it just makes you a lot happier.
It's definitely boosted my confidence so much.
It's not just people with dyslexia, it's everybody that needs it.
We're enabling our future generation to all be at the same level and have the same access.
So that just gives you a flavour of what this is, and also the quality of the product that we're talking about. We hired a proper videographer who himself had dyslexia, and although, as I said, it's not all dyslexia, it's about other things as well, we felt that it was important to give it quality and give it impetus. We also enlisted the help of Russell Prue, whose voice you know maybe on Bet Radio. He's got a very clear and engaging voice, and he's doing the narration on our films. So the films are tools, and what you see on the screen here, and it can go out with any additional information, is we want the films to be shared widely. That's the email address, and we're asking you to fill in a very short form so that we can track the impact of it. Since November, there have been 159 downloads, of which 30 of them are universities and colleges, which I'm really pleased about, because that means it's getting into the hands of teacher trainers. We also felt that so what? You've seen the films, what do we need to do now? And I co-wrote with Julia Cluter, more Julia than me, from Scanning Pens, on a free guide that you can get from NASEN. And if I click on that, it will take me to that, I hope, and then you can see where it is. Okay, right. I won't bother. It's actually, if I just change that, just give me a second. I'll just stop sharing. And there we go. Okay. So, yeah. So let me just go back in again. And this time I'll just share as I am going to take you to a website so that you can see that thing. All great plans. Hello, George. I am just in the midst of a webinar. Can I ring you back when I've finished? Okay. Thank you. So you should see now where this is at the moment. And there is the AT Miniguide. You would have to join NASEN to obtain it, but it's a free download, and you can download it and share it. If you live abroad, don't get it in Singapore or New Zealand because you'll get charged £50 for it. But it's free to UK, and all you do is just log in and sign for it. If you want to sign up to our discussion group, we have a Teachers for AT initiative, which is actually going through the SEND network, where we're trying to generate good practice and belief. So you can then go to this website, barteronline.org/initiative, and it's on the slides. I'll make sure that they work. Okay, so this is the impact one. That's where you can get hold of the films. This is the Teachers for AT. And what we're trying to do is share good practice and enable people to take this on board and to move the debate forward, because I think it will only work if we make an impact in the nation. I mean, my aspiration is to reach all 22,412 schools, and that's my dream. I've only got 159 at the moment, or at least 159 downloads, so there's a way to go. Anyway, I'm gonna stop there now and let you have a chat with us about these things. If anybody has a question or wants to know more about it, then please put a question in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask me. Okay, I'm just checking the chat now and can't see anybody at the moment.
Thank you
Nobody's
so much
brave enough
for that. Hopefully there's a few schools on the call today that will sign up for some of those resources, because yeah, definitely very worthwhile. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Myles? I just look or want to unmute.
No, they're all stunned into silence at the moment. If I just go back to why I think this is important, we're now living in an age where schools are struggling to meet needs, aren't we? So anything that could save time or money, and I think that's one of the questions that perhaps people don't necessarily think of AT. They think it's expensive, they think it's unreachable, but I know there is two technologies out there that can make a huge difference that our pupils told us about. One is text to speech and the other is speech to text. And you can attain that in Microsoft 365, or you could get it from Google Docs. Literally, it's free, and except obviously you'd have to pay for your Microsoft things. But those are two technologies that could change lives, and that our pupils told us it transformed their lives.
And I think schools are quite unaware of some of the resources they've already got in the school that's free and available, that not only supports the students but helps the teachers with their workload and, you know, their meeting the needs of their students and families. So,
indeed. And indeed, such little changes can make a huge difference. And we've been employing a mantra, essential for some and useful for all, because it benefits everybody to actually have assistive technology into your setting, because it helps those to achieve better results who may struggle, or those who actually are doing okay, but they're not doing brilliantly. And it may actually engage them to use maybe better quality words or smarter ways of doing things. And this is becoming more prevalent with AI, although that is a hot potato in education terms. It has to be researched and looked at in terms of what good could come out of it, as opposed to what harm it may cause. And I'm realizing both sides of that equation. But yeah, we have opportunities. And I missed the organisations that I was aware of. BECTA, British Education Communication Technologies Association, that used to do research and all of the things that would, you know, where do schools find best? Where do they see good practice? Where is that coming from? And usually it's word of mouth or the school next door, and there's nothing wrong in that. But there's no conduit and there's no kind of direction in order to enable students to use these technologies. I had one student I was working with as a lecturer in a university. And she said, if only I'd have known about this technology when I was in school, it would have changed my life. So I'm on a mission.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, the CENMAC team join you in that mission. So, yeah. Yeah, which is great that you've come along to share that resource today. So we'll definitely, as a team, we can share that as we go out around schools in London. Yeah, I think, you know, London's quite lucky because most of the schools also have LGFL as their internet providers with a whole load of free resources as well.
Brilliant stuff from them. Absolutely brilliant resource. Yeah. That would certainly help students as well. So yeah, I think it's a case of spreading the word and knowledge, because that's the third part of the teacher strand. The funding one is mainly part of the reason we did the films was to actually convince decision makers in Parliament. And once we've got the impact figures, we'll be able to say to them, well, look, there's been this many downloads and it's had this effect. And, you know, surely you should be doing something about it, but probably not in an election year. So we will wait and see. But I think it's important that, you know, we can try and influence decision makers to prioritize it. I think when governments do initiatives, I remember the interactive whiteboards, and the boards came into schools, but there was no training, or at least the initial training was, this is an interactive board, this is what you do. And then nothing, you know, it kind of fell into disrepair because there was no training in how to interface in your teaching and training. So that's why it was really defunct from that. So, you know, we've had this kind of thing. So the chasing after the bright, shiny objects, I call it that way, you know, your iPads and your virtual realities, these are all things that, you know, are not the essential nuts and bolts that can change lives. I'm not saying they're useless. I'm just saying, you know, there could be a more focused, a more targeted use of assistive tech that can transform lives. And we through our films have seen that, and I'm sure through your practice you've seen that as well. And you know, I think if we just make one step closer to that, it would be hugely successful. Okay, well, 2 minutes before the end.
Thank you.
Oh, we got some new messages. What do they say?
You can join them.
Yeah, I can see it. Maureen says, DeLonghi, thank you. Hi, Maureen. I absolutely agree with Myles. Students with ADHD and dyslexia are so often invisible, and highlighting the support available and providing the training is so important. Yes, and yes. So that's why we set up these things and these mechanisms. And we just want to, our main goal at BARTA is to raise the awareness of assistive technology in the UK. And this is one area that I'm actually passionate about and want to provide a legacy of, so that at least if we move into the next decade, we will have better use of technology for our students, so they won't get left behind, particularly those with neurodivergency.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and for sharing your passion and yeah, those resources. I don't know if there's any other questions, so we might just finish it there. Annabelle can stop the recording. And